Welcome, Khoshamdeep and Hoshgaldinis. Today we are going to discuss the rest of the topics of our novel, The Mill on the Floss. I have discussed the introduction, background story of the novel with you in the previous lecture, but today we are going to discuss the remaining aspects of the novel. So let's start our discussion. Here is the list of the contents. Today we are going to discuss the major themes and major characters of the novel The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. Let's move to the themes first. Here is the list of the themes. You can see the major themes of this novel, The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot, are love, family, suffering, choices, gender and social pressure, society versus individual, forgiveness, intolerance, and class consciousness of the society, means a class conscious society. These are the basic and prominent themes of the novel, The Mill on the Floss. The first theme of this novel that we find prominent throughout the course of the novel is love. Love is found in parallel with sufferings and social issues in the novel. Especially, we can find the aspect of love and suffering in the character of Maggie, who is also the protagonist of this novel. Maggie's affections and love for her brother Tom shows the strong family ties and the love between siblings. But on the other hand, Tom's coldness in response is shown as a point to consider the sister, means the girl, as a significant being. Then Maggie's love with Philip and Stephen is shown all along with the socio-economic and social turbulence of the Maggie's family. Means during the social and economic turbulence of Tillibers' family, Maggie had two love affairs. He had a friendship with Philip, but Philip was in love with Maggie. But on the other hand, she had eloped with Stephen, and she fell in love with Stephen, and Stephen was also the boyfriend of her cousin Lucy Deane. She was a very good character of this novel, and she tried her best to support her friend Maggie throughout the course of the novel. That's why Maggie could not decide to marry Stephen due to the guilt of deceiving her best friend Lucy. But her friendship with Philip wasn't admired by the family, especially by her brother Tom. Maggie has always to choose between her family or love. So love goes hand in hand with sufferings throughout the course of this novel, The Mill on the Floss. The next theme we are going to discuss in the novel is family. Maggie and Tom's family's troubles have snatched the beauty of life from them. When we probe deep into the analysis of this novel, we can find that the very family obligation, had never led both of the characters, Tom and Maggie, to live the life they desired. There is an ongoing conflict between family's obligation and personal desires, particularly for both of these characters, Maggie and Tom. Maggie is always to choose between family's will and her desire for a romantic life. She has to choose between those, and she always has to choose or has to prefer the family's will. She has to constantly choose between loving others and loving herself. This is another prominent feature of Maggie's character, and she always prefer to love others, to live for others. But after Tulliver's bankruptcy, and means Mr. Tulliver's, Maggie's father's bankruptcy, and his declining health, Tom and Maggie suffer equally to rebalance the financial status of their family. The next aspect, the next theme we are going to discuss in this novel is the theme of sufferings. Suffering is an ever present theme of the novel. Either it's the matter of family, love, home, financial status, or of choice. The characters are found suffering. Especially the protagonist, Maggie, has to suffer a lot as compared to the rest of the characters of this novel. However, suffering is one of the chief aspects of the whole plot of the novel. The next thing we are going to discuss is the matter of choice and individual's will. As far as the question of choice is concerned, no one from the Tullivers have ever decided freely for themselves. So they were always occupied by either society or by their financial status. That's why they could not ever get a choice for themselves. So they could not decide freely uh, in the course of the novel, in the later, especially in the later part of the novel. Tom has to quit his school to work for the stability of his family and for his sick and mentally disabled father. Maggie couldn't decide for her own self and for her own happiness just because of the prestige of the family, just because of the family's rivalry with the with Wickham family. She could not pursue her friendship and her love for uh, Philip Wickham. Another very important theme is gender and social pressure. Now, how can we find this very theme working in the novel? Let's discuss. Tom and Maggie are the oppositional souls of the same family. Tom is a boy, gets more privilege than Maggie. Tom is also sent to school for education. Maggie is always overshadowed by the decisions of her father and her brother Tom. And even in the matter of choices for her life, she has to leave Philip Wickham because Tom has not granted the relationship. This shows a powerful aspect of women in pressure of society and patriarchy. The aspect of gender suppression was common in Victorian era. Women were not considered wise and intelligent beings, and even George Eliot herself had to face the same issue. That's why she started writing with the pen name of a man, George Eliot, in order to win the public response. So the gender issues were very common on that time, and particularly women were considered the insignificant beings. The next theme we are going to discuss is society versus individual. Yes, throughout the course of the novel, we find this very aspect actively working in the lives of the characters, that there is a constant conflict between the society and individual. And the very thing, that this aspect is already discussed in the previous slides on choice, means in the section of choice I have already discussed this aspect of society versus individual, that an individual is always obliged to decide according to the social norms and social conditions. An individual is always overshadowed by society. Uh, this is shown in full swing in the novel The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. Uh, because none of the character we find is taking a free action or free decision, and if any of the characters, like Maggie, the protagonist, she has to try it, she has to try it, she has tried to, we can say, decide for her life, or at least she has taken a step according to her will, but she had to face the consequences in the form of disgrace and humiliation and negation from the family and the society. This very aspect is shown terribly uh, working in the novel. This is also showing a true depiction of the contemporary Victorian society. Means the Victorian society of the time has no uh, uh, hasn't granted any freedom to an individual to decide for his or her life. And if we observe our contemporary society, the situation is also same. None of the individual is free to decide for himself or herself. All of us are bound to decide according to the social wills, and we have to meet with the criteria of social normalcy. So this is a dilemma of past, but this is also a dilemma of present. And I think, keeping in view the contemporary society, the contemporary situation, the dilemma will remain continue in the future generations. The next theme we find, yeah, we have done with society versus individual. Yeah, the next thing we are going to discuss is forgiveness and tolerance. The other thing we find actively working in the novel is the aspect of forgiveness and tolerance. Well, this cannot be taken as a major theme. This is a minor aspect. It isn't a direct theme, rather, but a minor aspect of the novel. However, but it works in the novel. Most of the characters hold grudges against others, but a couple of aspects were there that show the significance of forgiveness and tolerance, particularly when Philip forgives Maggie for betrayal and for just letting him down by leaving him and by leaving the friendship, but Philip forgives Maggie. And then Tom's thinking on to feel compassionate for victims, but he couldn't feel compassionate due to the family's rivalry. Other than these minor aspects, there had no space of forgiveness and tolerance in the Victorian society of the time. Another important theme is society and class consciousness. I mean, society and class. The society of St. Auguste was strict and full of prejudices. Mr. Tulliver considered it a puzzling society. He used this term in the novel, that it's a puzzling society. Well, it was a society uh, that was so keen in keeping grudges against others, and it is so keen in judging others and gossiping about others. This was so common in that society. So it was a kind of society that allowed and encouraged many characters to behave badly towards others due to these evils of prejudices and grudges. Well, let's move to the discussion of characters. I'm going to discuss the major characters of this novel with you, and here is the list of the major characters: Maggie Taylor, Tom Tulliver, Philip Wakeham, Lucy Deane, Mr. and Mrs. Tulliver. Maggie Taylor. Maggie is the protagonist of the novel, a striking and unconventional girl. She is bold enough to think beyond the norms, yet remains unable to exercise her will due to the family pressure. She is a highly antagonistic character. That's why a very complicated, a very complex character she is. However, she is brave and radical in her approaches. Then comes the character of Tom Tulliver. Tom is Maggie's brother and a cold yet a hard working fellow. He is sort of he's just like his father. He's a cold sort of person, yet he is portrayed as a hard-working fellow. He's committed to make his family stable again. He has a strict, typical Victorian mindset. He prevented Maggie to live her desired life with Philip Wickham, due to the family conflict and family's rivalry. Philip Wickham. Philip Wickham is overall a nice character, Maggie's friend and her admirer. He loves Maggie, but they both have to end up the friendship due to their family's rivalries. Philip has a kind heart. He forgives Maggie at the end of the novel. Lucy Dean, a very sweet character, at least somehow a sweet character. She is a cousin and friend of Maggie Taylor, and she is the kind of girl who has always tried her best for a reconciliation between Maggie and Philip throughout the course of the novel, particularly in the later course of the novel. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. They are the mother and father of Tom and Maggie and Tom's parents, and the owners of the farms and Tallcoat Mill. A typical Victorian mindset is depicted in the characters of Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, and they were the residents of St. Ox. Well, thank you so much. I have a plan to decide the important quotations and questions with you from this novel, but we will have a separate session on that. And see you in the next video on short story. Yes, we are going to take a start of a new topic, that is short story. Thank you so much for today. Don't forget to subscribe our channel and please support us and promote us. And if you like our video, please like it and please write something encouraging in the comments. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.